Hello and welcome. I'm Penny Rinter-60 and I'm delighted to be chairing today this session on International Women's Day in conjunction with B4 and this fabulous selection of female panellists who are women leaders in business. I'm a commercial lawyer at Blake Morgan, an all-services law firm based at Seacourts Tower in Botley in Oxford. I'm a lawyer specialising in joint venturing commercial projects and helping people to partner. And I'm also a leader in a gender balanced team of lawyers, I'm pleased to say. I'm also a non-exec director at the Oxfordshire LEP, an organisation that champions Oxfordshire's economic potential to drive a dynamic, sustainable and growing economy. I also chair two subgroups for the OxLEP, and I lead Blake Morgan's NED Connect, which looks to connect non-exec directors together in terms of networks, but also to achieve greater learning. So I do have board and leadership experience, which I hope can be helpful to this discussion. I'm also a mother, a daughter, a wife, a sister, and also a very focused and fun-loving woman and person in my own right. And I think it's important that we all remember that International Women's Day is important. Before we go around, we might wonder why, because it's very easy for us to think as women leaders, what's the point and what's International Women's Day about? Well, it is a global day which is here to celebrate the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women. And also the day marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. And whilst we come together to celebrate our achievements on this day, elsewhere in the world, there are women who are fighting for equality. So with that note in mind, I'm going to hand over to Ria. And if we could each, perhaps, ladies, introduce ourselves and talk about why we're here and what we want to contribute for International Women's Day. Thanks, Ria.
Brilliant, thanks Penny. So my name is Ria Shepherds. I'm the office manager for Charles Stanley Wealth Managers. We're based actually over the road from Penny down in Botley. We're a full service firm managing wealth for private clients, trusts, charities and companies, and we pride ourselves on our bespoke discretionary management service. I've been with the company for just shy of 10 years and I started out as a secretary. Within 6 months of joining, I was appointed the first broker's assistant within the office and undertook my first set of exams. Qualifying with those gained me associate status with our regulatory body, which is the Chartered Institutes for Securities and Investments. Bit of a mouthful. The skills and knowledge gained from that has been invaluable, and 5 years ago I was appointed the office manager and I completed a diploma in leadership and management 2 years ago and I got a merit, so I'm very sort of proud of my achievements there. Obviously within our industry it's not going to be any surprise that it is still very sort of male dominated. In Oxford we're actually fortunate that we have 2 female investment managers and generally a ratio of sort of 1-to-1 between male and female staff. I think it's really important that we have this diversity, as certainly with perhaps our female clients, those that are either widows or divorcees, actually preferring a female investment manager. As a company, we committed 40% of new hires to be women for the year ending March 2020. Actually, we exceeded that, and our target was we ended up 53% of new hires were women. So that's an incredible achievement and a credit to those obviously who are employed within the roles here. As an industry, as a firm, we're part of the Women in Finance Charter. So that's a government-led commitment to work together to build more of a balanced and fair industry and support the progression of women into senior roles within the financial services sector. However, despite 45% of the financial services sector workforce being women, only 23% sit on a board. So, there's certainly a lot more uphill sort of battles that we have to face there. What's even more stark comparison is the female CEOs of large companies. So of 5% of the companies listed on the FTSE 100, only 5% are female, and on the 250 is only 2%. I think, sort of final takeaway, what's interesting to note is during the pandemic, the countries that actually performed better and sort of dealt with the sort of virus more effectively were actually New Zealand, Germany, Norway, all of these countries that actually had female leaders. And, they managed to deal with it more effectively, make more decisive decisions. And, that in turn resulted in fewer deaths than sort of, our other countries. So how do we succeed? Well, personally, I think as females, we show more compassion. And I think that we have, more of a bond to sort of see each other strive and progress. And I think we have that unity more so. But I mean, there's still work that needs to be done, clearly. But I think, we can only but continue on the road that we're on. So, Sam, I'll hand over to you.
Great, thanks, Ria. Really interesting. So yeah, really delighted to be here today as part of International Women's Day and to celebrate successes. But I also think it's important to kind of recognise some of those challenges that we face as well. And one of those that I wanted to talk about in particular was confidence, or rather a lack of confidence, and particularly a lack of self-confidence. And I'm talking from a personal perspective here, because it's an issue that, I've kind of encountered really since my sort of teenage years. And certainly through my career, when I was promoted relatively quickly to a leadership role and being a board director, it was something that, I was particularly challenged by. But I think it's something that lots of women actually face. There was some research done by Cornell University that said women tend to underestimate their kind of capabilities and their performance, whereas men tend to often overestimate theirs. But actually, in terms of the quality and the quantity of what we do, there's not any actual difference between men versus women. So I think that's really heartening. But as I reflect back on my career, and I think that I was really fortunate that I've been supported by my organisation through my career development. But in those early years, when I was a director, I suffered from something that's called Imposter Syndrome. I don't know whether anyone's heard of it, but essentially it's almost where you feel that you're not worthy of that particular position, or that you might be found out. And looking back now, that was kind of unfounded and not really what I needed to feel. But you can't get rid of those feelings particularly easily. And as I say, so I've been lucky that I've been supported through my leadership journey. Myself and my colleague Sarah have both undertaken courses through a fantastic organisation called Quolux. And as part of that, we both completed MBAs in leading business, which has been fantastic. And I have to say that's really improved my self-confidence along the way, but it's still very much work in progress. So I thought I'd share some of my key learnings from that, because it might be useful for others. And the first thing I'd say is, take a good look at yourself, get to know yourself better. I think we all have our blind spots, don't we? And for me, I tended to always focus on all the negative stuff and not really appreciate the good stuff as well. So it might even be useful to get some insight from other people, whether that's your peers or family or friends, and ask them, what is it about me, and what are my attributes and your weaknesses too. To reflect more, and I think that's something that we all do, perhaps unconsciously, but to be more kind of diplomatic and rigid about doing that more often, and that's kind of building on that kind of looking inward. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. You might turn to TED Talks. I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. You might set aside perhaps time to do that at the end of each day, to think of something positive from that day. You might write a journal and ask yourself questions about what you've done and what you could have done better. So work out what works for you, but make sure that you are doing that really valuable kind of reflection piece, and set aside time to do that. And I'd say get support as well. I've talked about obviously my leadership development journey, which I found really, really empowering. But there's great coaches out there. You might be able to get mentors within your own organisation. I've just actually completed, and Penny will be interested to hear that, the Oxlep Peer Network sessions. And really, really invaluable, to be in a group of people, leaders from different organisations facing the same kind of challenges and issues, and to be able to share those in a confidential setting, and to get that reassurance back from them that you're not alone. Because let's face it, being a leader is lonely, and particularly at the moment when we're all sat at home as well, we're all virtually meeting people. So that was really, really powerful. So do look for things like that can support you with your confidence issues. And my final point really is that, you know, it keep practicing. It's something that you need to keep building on. Fortunately, confidence improves with experience, so I think it gets better over time. But, you know, as part of being a leader, I think learning is an ongoing thing, and confidence sits hand in hand with that. So Helen, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. So I'm Helen Money. I'm a nutritionist, owner of Helen Money Nutrition. This is my second career. My first career was in the city. I worked in the investment industry for 16 years. I started in a supporting role as an assistant, then progressed through to being responsible for emerging market investments. And when I left, I was associate director level. So from my experiences in the city, so this was through the late 80s, through the 90s, early 2000s, it was an extremely male-dominated industry. And I can certainly relate to what Sam was saying about imposter syndrome. To make sure you weren't found out, you had to act like one of the boys. You had to have the same humour, you had to use the same type of language, and to some extent, you dressed quite similar as well, dark suit and shirt. And it was very much trying to be one of the boys. Now, if I jump to my career now as a nutritionist, what I'm really excited about is this big surge in a research recently on the female athlete, because for the past decades, most sports nutrition research has been based on men, and we were using that knowledge on women. And what now has been realised that women actually have to be fueled. Women athletes have to be fueled differently. So this is really exciting because we can recognise that we're different, but equally capable. So if we look at Olympic level athletes, Olympic level men sprinters and strength sports, there is still an advantage for men because of their physical, the way they're made. However, in sports such as equestrian and shooting, where it's about cognitive function and concentration, women are equal. And I'm just really excited that we're getting the research on this, and we can say, you know what, as women, we are actually different, but we're equally capable. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share today.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Helen. And I think it's been really, really useful to hear all your thoughts. Georgie, are you able to share with us as well?
I'm actually part of the behind the scenes on this. But I think what you're all talking about is, really, it's. I think what Helen was saying, how men and women are both. We all have our kind of different part. Like we all have our different specialities, and we're built differently. But it doesn't mean that we're not equal. So yeah. Thanks for that. That's really important. That is really important. I think every one of us has had something to say which has been useful. I like, the thinking about balanced boards and that gender. Making sure that we're all participating is going to be better for the health and wealth of not just companies but countries. Just having that mixed pool of people is so important. And so, when I think about it, International Women's Day is not just about being for women, is it? It's for everybody, because it's also for men. I'm bringing up two boys who are constantly hearing me talk about, think about that. Why do you think that creates more women in the work? Why do you think that creates more men in the workforce? And, why is it in my firm that there's so many women in the workforce, but in the top sort of management or on the board, there aren't? How does that flip? And then we have like really good debates. And I think having those debates with everyone of all ages is really, really very helpful. For men, I mean, for my boys and for men generally, they have mothers, they have wives, daughters, if not now, and possibly, hopefully in the future, they have female relationships that are going to be important, and they're going to want those women to succeed and to contribute. So I think that that's really important. And then I think also in businesses and firms and how we work together with men, and also, you know, gender neutral, you know, we all need to work together. Because at the end of the day, being sort of sidelined because of unconscious bias, you know, images that we have in our mind by the appearance of somebody, or having a construct in our working day that stops parents, for example, contributing, that's not good for anybody. That's bad for everyone. And I just wanted to share an example of a board example, actually, where we wanted to get more women on the board. And we were trying to figure out how we do this. And I don't know if you've heard, like, quite often when women look at a job application, you know, they will think that they need all of the characteristics that are on there. And whereas, you know, generally, broadly, men would have a look at an application and think, oh, well, I've got 3 out of 7. I'm obviously ideal for the job. You know, there is this sort of worry sometimes that we women are thinking that we need everything to be able to play a part, this sort of imposter syndrome that you were talking about, Sam, that, you know, I'm not going to be good enough, clearly. And as a group, we wanted to get more women on the board. And so we were trying to figure out how to do this. And then we said, right, okay, we're all just going to look at the job advert. And we did. We shared the job advert out and said, would you, as a woman, apply for this job? And we found that if we changed some of the criteria and the order in which the criteria appeared, because, you know, obviously we'd obviously think that the first one was the most important, but if the language was more, you know, appealing to empathetic, broader, bigger picture, more nurturing type qualities, we thought, well, okay, we're going to get more, we would apply, therefore we'll probably get more women applicants. And as well as that, I mean, it really worked, because we then reached out into our networks and said to other women leaders, or women that we thought would be good leaders, this advert's coming out, we hope you will apply. And then all of a sudden they kind of thought, oh, okay, that applies to me as well then, you know. And I think that helps overcome imposter syndrome, doesn't it? Because you're thinking, oh, they're reaching out to me. I don't know what you think about that, Sam.
Definitely. I think that's really interesting. And can I ask what the outcome was then in terms of the appointment?
We did get more women more women applicants than we'd ever had. And we did get more women on the board. And I'm really pleased about that, because one of the women I put forward, who I thought would be really good, got onto the board, you know, and it was nothing, you know, I wasn't the deciding voice. And in fact, I didn't do the interview. But interviewing is really funny as well. I remember interviewing board members, and we had this guy, and he was really good. I mean, he was a very, very strong candidate, could do the job, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. But throughout the whole of the interview, it was a panel of me and 2 men. He addressed all of his answers to the men, and this is the funniest thing was that he didn't know he was doing it. And I'm sure if I had ever told him, he would have been mortified that he had been doing that. He hadn't consciously done that. And afterwards, we were having a little roundup and saying, oh, what did you think of that candidate? And we were talking about it. And I looked at these guys and I just said to them, did you not notice that he never once addressed any of his answers to me? And they went, oh, we didn't even realise. And isn't that funny? Like, didn't even realise.
That's interesting.
Just goes to show, doesn't it, that we all do things without realising it. And I'm sure I would have done, you know, something.
Yeah. I think it sort of plays into your sort of unconscious bias as well to some degree, doesn't it? So, I mean, I've had that experience as well, Penny. A few years ago, like you know, there's me and, you know, another in the room, and all the answers were directed at the male in the room. So, you know, whether that's something, you know, for the person felt more comfortable talking to a man, like, you know, like women sometimes feel more comfortable talking to women. But I think, you know, touching on, you know, what today's all about, I think is a celebration, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's a celebration of, you know, women in general, but also the achievements because of other people around us. You know, it's not just it's not just about women, but of course, like, it's the time to sort of celebrate, to be like, you know, we can be as good as our, you know, male sort of counterparts. So I think it's just a real credit to everyone that's, you know, achieved what they've achieved in their careers or in their personal life.
Absolutely.
And it really should be about qualities, the qualities that we have. And I think this is why, you know, I think we need to, you know, tell imposter syndrome, go back into your box. It's just not relevant to us, because we've got so much to offer. There's so many skills that we offer that are needed in combination with other thinking, you know, with men, gender, you know, neutral. You know, so many people, it's not just about gender, it's about thought and having that diversity of thinking, and making sure that we're making the most out of all the talent that there is out there, and not saying, okay, no, that's not for you. I mean, who thinks, I mean, like the constructs of the working day and how things are set up, they kind of really influence, don't they, and prevent us from you know, pushing forward sometimes. And I think that's bad for men too, because if you're a parent, you don't want to have a job which is then, you know, taking out a very important part of your life. And I really do think that we all need to have an authentic life, men and women. You can't just, I mean, work takes up a lot, it's a large aspect of our lives, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't take up all of our lives. And, you know, to be able to say, well, I give enough time to my work, and it's really good quality time, and what I've contributed, I'm really proud and happy that I've contributed that. But to walk away from that and say, I'm now going to give 100% of my time to my children, to my husband, to myself. I think we all need to do that. And I think men as well as women should be doing that, and spending so much important time in bringing up their children, their boys, their daughters, to, you know, to carry on, you know, challenging their own unconscious bias, and to be and to change the construct of the day so that you can achieve whilst also being successful in your private life.
I'd totally agree with that, although I do think it's interesting that I think if you hear a man saying, I'm going to take time to spend some time with my children, I think potentially we're still in a different place when a man says it to, as a woman. I think most women, again, try to pretend there's not that family life there, and that because it makes them look too feminine and not a business person if they talk about their home life, talk about their children in a working environment. I don't know whether you agree with that. And just think, my example is if I'm on at home being on a Zoom call, if my children were to come in, I'd be, oh no, they thought I had children, you know, that's really unprofessional. Whereas if my husband, they were walking on a call with my husband, he'd probably say, come and say hello. And, you know, I think there is this slightly still this different what we're meant to be presenting. I don't know whether you agree with that or not.
I definitely agree with that, and I left Ria or Sam want to jump in, but you know, I've found that that's the case with my, you know, kids, my boys. I think I've got to that point where I really don't care. You know, I'm quite happy for them to come on screen, and they're the ones that are more worried about it than I am. But I think that it's really broken down barriers with clients and expectations, because, you know, I'll be talking to a very important finance director, and his child will come in to, you know, into the room, and he will say hello, and they might even come over and sit on his lap and then go away. I was talking to a really high-powered charity director, female. Her daughter came in, sat on her lap, she carried on conducting the negotiation, and the child walked away again. It's like, good for you.
That's good multitasking.
It's been forced on us all.
I mean, I can't comment on the sort of the family aspect, but certainly working, you know, we work to live, we don't live to work. And I think that certainly the last 12 months, in my view, has really sort of taught us that, because, you know, everyone's working at home. So you don't now have that sort of disconnect from sort of office and home life.
Yeah,
I know that certainly, you know, a lot of my colleagues, they have, fortunately for them, they have, you know, purpose sort of built studies and offices and the like. Whereas, you know, for myself, I'm in my kitchen. So come sort of 5:30, I'm just like, well, I don't want to be in my kitchen anymore. But I think it is really important. And, you know, like you guys were saying, if you know, your children are sort of coming on camera, I think actually you kind of expect some sort of disruptance, don't you?
yeah.
You know, like whether it's children,
human, isn't it?
Yeah.
To see that side of people. And I think, you know, although we've been, you know, miles apart, I suppose, and virtually, I feel like I've actually got to know my team quite well, because I've seen inside their homes and, you know, met their dogs and their kids or whatever. And, you know, I think that's important, actually, to realise that these people have outside lives. As part of that.
I think it's really helpful to flatten the organisation, isn't it? You know, to just say, okay, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and, you know, just because just because I'm a partner or your boss or so, you know, something, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I'm a human being. I've got like responsibilities like you. I've got to figure out what I'm making for dinner and at some point in the day, and I might want this call to finish because I still haven't taken the washing machine, the washing out of the washing machine. You know, it's we're all multi-challenged. Well, hopefully, sadly, I can't believe that time's gone so quickly. It's been really lovely to chat with you and get your insights. And hopefully, whoever's watching out there, you found it interesting as we have, and inspiring to you as well. And you know, do we still need International Women's Day? You know, when we've got so many very inspiring female leaders on this panel, but also, you know, in our day-to-day lives. And the answer is yes. We can't be complacent. Apparently, I've got a statistic for you. According to the World Economic Forum, none of us will see gender parity in our lifetimes. That's a very sad statistic, sad fact. And nor likely will many of our children. And I'll be very disappointed if that's the case. The amount of, like, you know, chatter the boys get from me about that. And apparently gender parity will not be attained for almost a century. Wow. And I guess when we look back at the progress that's been made in the last 100 years, it's been slow, I think, and it is a shame. And I know there's lots of reasons for that. It's not a conspiracy of men against women. It is just that we often take ourselves out of the market, and we need to find ways in which we stop that from continuing to happen. So there's a lot of urgent work we can do. There's a lot more we can do in our organisations as well. And we, you know, at Blake Morgan are doing a fair amount. This week, in fact, we've launched International Gender Network, and we're looking at renaming that network into something exciting. Because we really want to make sure that we are bringing up more talent within the workforce, but also, and last week we were recognising the parental responsibility generally, and that's gender neutral. Time's run out. Have a wonderful International Women's Day, women and men, and gender neutral. Everybody enjoy yourself. Have fun.